Well then, Hiram Bleetman, welcome to the show. This is quite surreal having you here. Just to give the audience a quick background, we have known each other since we were, I'm going to say, 11 years old. That's when we started Coppleston High School. So
I
I don't
actually,
know.
yeah, I don't remember meeting you at 11.
Right, I was going to say, I don't think we hung out when we
Yeah.
were
We
in
were
the
on opposite
first
sides of
year.
the year.
Yes, yes, the year was divided in two, and never the twain shall meet. Um,
Yeah.
Not even boys and girls, just two different halves of the
Yeah,
year.
they
It's
just,
very,
yeah,
very strange when you think about that now.
yeah,
But we lived on the same street,
yeah.
and so eventually you and me began walking, at least from school
I
back
think
to
that's,
home.
yeah, I think that's how it happened. How we sort of actually got to know each other was that we were like, hey, it's you again.
Yeah, yeah. Why are you following me home, dude? So we've known each other a long time, and one of the things that I love about that is that we've always kind of been on this journey. So I remember talking to you when we were doing media studies at school, when we did the school
Yeah,
play together, Bugsy
yeah,
Malone. We always wanted to be in the entertatainment industry.
yeah. We were
And
as obsessed as each other
yes, and obsessed with each other, I think it's fair to say.
for a while. Yeah.
Let's not bring up that. So we I remember one of my earliest memories of you actually is we had a conversation and I said something like, I think I'll give myself until I'm in my mid 20s to make this happen, and then I'll probably just give up and get a normal job.
Oh, wow.
And you said, you probably don't remember this, but it stuck with me. You said, I'm gonna give myself as long as it takes.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that sounds
Yeah.
about right, doesn't it?
It sounds very you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So definitely going to dive into those memories with you today and just unpack that journey of going from saying something like that at the age of probably 15
Mm.
to now X number of years later that I won't reveal. Still doing it, still doing the thing. I think it's incredible, and you've balanced it so well with a lot of other things. You are married, you have children, you have a day job. So we have a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
I'm excited to do it. But before we do that, I do just want to. I made a few notes for this episode, and one of them was we were the first two people to ever get kicked out of a class at Coppleston Sixth Form. Do you
Yeah.
remember this?
Yeah. I remember. Yeah. And the thing to note is that there was a whole year that went before us. We
The
weren't the
sixth
first year,
form,
we were the second year.
the sixth form had been open for a year before we
And
even
we were
joined
still
it.
the first people to be kicked out of class.
No one had ever been asked to leave a classroom.
I remember we made our media studies teacher swear on her first day as a
Yep.
teacher, not
This
just
is
Miss
Miss
Crump.
Crump. Crump,
Yeah.
I think. Wasn't that also the class that we eventually got sent out of?
Yeah.
Funny how that adds up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember that class. I remember sitting at the back, just aching with
Oh,
laughter, just trying not to laugh out loud, shoulders shaking,
yeah.
abs hurting from clenching, trying to hold it in,
Yeah.
just
Twice a week.
struggling to breathe.
Oh man.
Oh my goodness, such good times.
Yeah.
Such good time. And just this, and this will kind of bring us back to the subject of today, just this fascination with American culture and
Yeah.
movies
Definitely.
and TV shows. That was one of the things we bonded with, wasn't it?
Definitely. That carries through, we'll come to it, to the film I'm making.
Yes, we will talk a lot about Firmament, the
Mhm.
film that's coming up for you, and Great Scott, the script that I've read and has been circulating now for a number of years.
Yeah.
So much to talk about. I want to start with this question of what has there been kind of a number one, I don't know if you would say the word mantra, but something you've always kept in your mind over the decades that you've been in this that has just kept you going? Is it that feeling that you're just going to give it as long as it takes, or has there been just this unwillingness to not do this? Does it feel like something you have to do? What is it that keeps you going? Because you've been doing it a long time.
If you hear noise, it's my son outside in the garden with a couple of dogs. Anyway,
That's great. That was a great answer. Thanks. We'll move on to the next question.
um,
You nailed it.
in fact, I'm going to close the window. You can edit this out. It's ridiculous.
I'm not going to edit this out. This is too good.
Shush.
All right. Welcome to the Right in the Head podcast, where I'm talking to a blank wall.
Yeah, sorry. Anyway, I'm back. Um, well, actually, I've never had a mantra per
Okay.
se. Um, it's just I think about this often because I'm like, why am I still here? What is it about being a filmmaker? And what is it going to feel like that moment that I feel like I'm I'm there, as it were. You know, that sort of maybe that arrival feeling that I get, and what will that literally feel like? And I think it's more than what I want to do. It's more than what I need to do. It's just who I am. It's like it's completely part of my identity, and and if I do anything else, I won't be happy.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
so I've not had a mantra. I've not had any kind of thing in my head to kind of hold on to get me through the tough times or the quiet times or the slow times. It's just been I've been compelled to do it just from whatever seed was planted in me, and I think I know where that came from. Um, but whatever seed was planted in me, it's just it's stayed there my entire life, and it's just not been something that I can even contemplate not doing.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
yeah, I guess it's a bit reckless, but it's all or nothing really.
Hey folks, if you're enjoying this chat with my good friend Hiram, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I will be doing weekly podcast episodes as well as some future tutorial videos, all on the art of screenwriting. If you want to leave a comment, tell me what you'd like me to do a video about, go ahead and do so. And if you want to throw me a cheeky like, well, I wouldn't complain. Okay, back to the chat. So, double clicking on that,
Mm,
where you said you think you know where that seed was planted, and I'm so interested in that because having known you since a young age, you seem to have
yeah,
always been this person.
and it was early on. It was way before I met you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
I met you as a fully formed movie buff American
yeah
lover. Where do
yeah
you, because I know
yeah
you had actually contact with Americans and the American culture from a very young age through the church that you were a member of. Is there any connection
yeah
there? Where did
yeah.
this whole thing start?
Well, film and then America, the seeds are separate. So film,
Mm, okay.
we used to go to my great uncle's home, and while the adults were all chatting around the dining room table, as about a 4 year old, I'm thinking, I was put in as I've now done with my own kids. I realized kind of now what was happening. I was put in front of the TV, and my great aunt, would put on either Watership Down, which I still, we all still bear the
Wow.
scars from,
Yeah.
the Snowman if it was Christmas,
Uh-huh.
James Bond movies, the odd random James Bond.
Mm-hmm.
But there were two that stood out was Superman the movie and Superman 2.
Oh yeah.
It just did
Yeah.
something to me. The music,
Mm-hmm.
the realistic depictions of flight, it utterly um,
Yeah.
hooked me
I
in,
I
and that was
remember
it.
now, again, a very, very early memory of you was so excited, so animated, telling me about how they did one of the flight scenes in Superman. I think it's when he maybe flies close to a tree and rescues a cat, or
Yes, I love that scene. I
yes, I
love that
remember.
scene.
Wow, what a moment.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's just
I remember you telling me that.
yeah.
some
and
30 years ago, and it stuck with me.
yeah, man. I mean, for real, that it's those scenes. Of course, there are some shonky moments in it. It was 77 when they made it, or 78. Um, and but there are certain scenes where I think it wasn't wide, it was more close up or whatever, where you can't see the wires. They did it for
Mm.
real. It wasn't in front of a projection screen.
They did it for real. They actually got Christopher Reeves to
Well, I
fly.
mean, they physically did it, and it was incredible. It was just, it
Yeah,
just, and that,
yeah.
and I remember back then, obviously, no DVDs or and videos, just purely showed the movie. But at Christmas, they would have the making of documentaries, and I was as excited to see the making of documentaries as I was the film. And I remember being so excited to see the making of Superman 3 when they broadcast it on ITV or BBC. I was circling that in the TV schedule and made sure that I was going to watch that, and I recorded it. In fact, so I was as excited about that, and from there, that was it. It was all about films. And then the thing about America, the first time I went, I was 10 years old. Then the next time I went, I was nearly 16. And then I went again uh, the same summer when I was 16.
Mm.
And the impression that America made on me was absolutely massive, just
Yeah.
huge.
I went when I was
I don't,
13,
I don't know
and same
why.
thing, same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know what
13
it
years
is
old.
about the place. Um,
Have you
I
have you
think it's
given that
just the
any
scale.
thought? Have you given that thought since then? Because I still have the infatuation, even though I've now lived there for
Right.
7 years.
Mhm.
Still infatuated, still in love, and I still can't quite describe why.
The thing about America is that they're very good at romanticizing their country, and I completely buy into it. And I think
Mm,
part of what makes that believable is that the size of the country is so vast, you can believe all the stories that could potentially happen there. Whereas if you set something, it's harder to believe, and maybe this is because I'm from here and Americans might feel the same way. I don't know. But if you set something in like Leeds, I'm like, well, that's like 2 hours down the road. And like, no,
I'm
it's like this,
imagining
it's like
Independence Day happens in Leeds.
you what, sorry?
Independence Day.
Yeah, exactly.
The ship is
Exactly.
hovering over Leeds.
Exactly, and like if all the things that happen, what's that Oxford detective? I can't even remember his name now. But if all the murders that happened in Oxford were true, it's like Oxford would be the murder capital of Europe. It's like
Right.
it's just like you don't buy it. Um,
Right. Yeah, I
but
suppose if we had the Zodiac killer, I guess that was a real story. That's a bad example, but I see what you mean. It's especially from this across the pond
yeah,
perspective,
yeah,
anything could happen in America.
and it's like
So
it's just that it's not everything looks. There's a lot that's similar in America, but it's just on a bigger scale.
even the what I noticed when I first went over there was the smaller, even the smaller things are bigger.
Right.
So cars just a bit wider, just a bit
Yeah.
longer.
I
Houses
remember looking at
just a bit
curbs.
bigger.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
yeah.
remember looking at the
Curbs.
curbs.
You need a
And I'm like,
ladder to get up those things.
yeah. It's all just, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
It utterly captured me. And I
Yes.
have vague memories of when I went when I was 10. And I think because they're vague, they're that much more romantic in my mind and that much
Yeah.
more poetic in my mind and
And
magical.
I
Really
think
magical. And so yeah, I've been completely besotted with America ever since.
and I think what they do really well is they push you forward and they say, "Yes, you can. You
Mm,
can do this." It's a cliche to say that because it's kind of, the American dream,
mm,
but the UK is, now that I've left it and come back to it, what I feel it now. I didn't feel this when I lived here. It's more like the analogy of crabs in a bucket. If one of them tries to escape, the other crabs pull it back down again.
Yeah.
And I kind of get that feeling in the UK, not from necessarily the people in my social circle because they know me and they know I'm, driven and ambitious, but there is a feeling of we don't really want you to do too well because that would make the rest of us look bad. Uh,
Yeah.
I don't get that feeling in America. It's
No,
more
no,
like let's
no.
let's all try and do probably too much of this. Let's all try and do as absolutely the best as we can
Yeah.
to a fault and to a
Yeah.
point where it's stressful and
Yeah.
workaholics. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I think coming from the UK and then moving there, you can find a balance between those two
Mhm.
extremes.
Yeah. Agreed.
How have you done all of this? This is something I'm really fascinated by, and I don't think I've asked you this even as a friend before. How have you done all of this and managed your family life, managed the kids, managed because you were married fairly young,
Hmm.
had kids fairly young.
Hmm.
How has this impacted that? Have you ever felt I should just level up, forget this whole thing, get a proper job? I know you've had jobs in the meantime, but has that ever been a pressure on you, or have your family really understood like this is just part of who you are?
Well, yeah, my wife has fully understood that's just who I am. Um, and I think I'm definitely a couple, probably until I was able to buy a house, and even that was with inheritance money, right? Um, but I have felt a few steps behind, and it's hard. Um, I just had to work and gather all the resources that are available to me to get by. Um, and we started a business together, even to try and uh, create something that could support us. That didn't work out that well. Um, and yeah, we've I wouldn't say we've muddled by. I think that does my wife a disservice.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's we've just had to graft, and in terms of like I don't have that many qualifications. I have my A levels, but I didn't do a degree. And so after we tried, we started our business when we were about 28, and we did that for 5 years. And albeit I was only about 33, but at that point it's hard to start at the bottom of anywhere.
Mm.
If I was to take an entry level job and try to work my way up, and there's a certain amount of focus and application that you have to do in any job, and I just couldn't give myself over to um, another job in the way that you need to in order to climb that ladder. Um,
Well, what I think you've done well, though, is that eventually you've come around to finding a job that is at least in the right universe, as I would
oh,
call it.
yeah, 100%, and it saved my life
Wow.
without,
Okay. Okay. We can't just skirt over that. It
well, without,
saved your life.
well, I feel
That's
like it did. I feel like it
no.
did.
I love it. I love it. I want to talk about that. This is your
Yeah,
job that you have now, which is in essentially you're in special effects. Well, you
and
tell
prop
me. You
modeling.
you
Well,
you
yeah.
you
So,
you say
so
it better than I say it.
yeah, I work in special effects, or I work in prop modeling, and that came about. So I've been doing that for 10 years, and that came about because by this point, back in 2014, I met the writer that I currently work with, and we'd written a script which we'll get to called Great Scott, and we had gotten it very quickly to one of the Harry Potter producers. And 4 years down the line, or 3 years down the line, we were still working and developing it with him. But by this point, we had managed to sell the business, and I phoned him up, and I said, "Look, this has just happened. I would love for my day job to be in the industry at the very least. So besides working on Great Scott with you, I want to also be working in the film industry." and he was just started. The timing worked out as with many of these things. They were in early pre-production on The Legend of Tarzan with Alexander Skarsgård and Margot Robbie,
Mm, right.
and
Yeah.
the special effect, and this was the special effects department. The buyer coordinator of that department needed an assistant in the office, and he asked them to give me 2 weeks. And if it didn't work out, they could find someone else. But
Hmm.
he asked them to give me 2 weeks, and the rest is history.
Well,
But
when
it
you said it saved your life,
Yeah, it
that's the
saved
part
my
that I'm
life
interested in.
insofar as it bought me time.
Yes.
So instead of being desperate to make my own films and to arrive at this moment, right, that I've referred to, um, which you can't rush and you can't come across as desperate. You just have to graft your way. Um, it just bought me that time and that patience. So now finally I had a well-paying job. I could really support my family and I loved what I did.
Hmm.
And it is essentially just any old office job, but because it's in film and I would regularly visit the sets to take paperwork to crew. I was seeing the actors, I was seeing the sets, I was seeing the crew. It was magic, and it meant that I could spend my day-to-day life being happy. And so obviously that has an inevitable effect, a subsequent effect on my family life.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. This is
a
something
positive.
something that I talk about quite a lot is building a sustainable lifestyle
Yeah,
that enables you to continue the pursuit of your
yeah.
eventual goal.
And I
Otherwise, you will burn out.
Yeah, and I've heard that maxim many times,
Yeah.
from other people, because it's true. No one knows how long it's going to take for you to reach whatever your final destination is. So in the meantime, you have to find something else that you can enjoy. The problem with me was that there is nothing else I enjoyed. So and I think it's just
I
the way
can
my
just
brain it's
I
the way my
imagine
brain works,
you.
and I just I was I hesitate to say lucky because it was through hustle, but it's a combination of both. But I got myself to somewhere where my my day job, I was happy with what I was doing.
Yes, I imagine you down the job center. Do you have anything in film?
Yeah,
Still no, Hiram. Still no.
yeah,
How about
yeah.
something in TV? Still no, Hiram. Still no.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's tough because you know that's your passion. You know that's where you want to go. And then there's reality, which is
yeah,
bills, rent,
yeah,
family, food shopping,
yeah,
groceries for the American audience. It's very tough. It's very tough. But that's something I've learned. If anyone was to ask me what's probably the most important lesson you've learned over the years, it's that you cannot sprint towards
yeah,
your
yeah,
long-term goal.
yeah,
Short-term goals sometimes require a bit of sprinting.
yeah.
Long-term goals, it's such a cliche, but it's so true. It's a marathon. And if you're trying to sprint, it will not work. It's too
No,
stressful.
no.
It's not even a good strategy.
Mm,
It's going to, as you were saying, you're going to come across as desperate.
hmm.
If you're relying on your creative endeavors to earn you money, you're already screwed.
Yeah,
You're already screwed. You won't put out your best work. You'll be looking for
yeah,
the opportunities that pay rather than opportunities that excite you.
yeah,
It's just not doable.
yeah. It's really
Um,
hard. It's really hard, and yeah,
yeah.
and and I would I blocked myself from being happy until I reached my goal, and that's had
Deferred
huge.
happiness.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
had that's had huge ramifications to my mental health.
Yeah, I
Um,
was because talk about this to whatever extent that you're comfortable, but
yeah,
as your close friend, I've seen you not in great detail, but I've seen you go through a few periods of life where you were struggling a bit. And I
Hmm.
think I'm right in saying most of that does come down to this relentless need to be in the
Yeah,
film industry
yeah.
and how
Oh,
difficult that can be.
it 100% does. And in a sense, in one sense, it's a dream, but another sense, it's also been a cloud, and it's been an anchor
Mm,
around my
I love that.
yeah. You
Yeah.
know, it's both if you let it, or if you don't find a strategy to deal with everyday life, not doing exactly what you want to at that time, and that is the biggest challenge, like you said. And I would exhort anyone um, uh, who is still on their way to their goal, um, to, as much as you can, to focus on finding something that will sustain you, in terms of yourself, in terms of your well-being,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
financially. It's not easy, and it's so easy to say, and it's a challenge, um, but it's so important because there's no way to live. It's no way
Right.
to live,
Right.
and if you have a family, they will suffer because of it as well. Um,
Right. I
and
think there's that sort of romanticism almost about quit your day job, burn the ships at the shore, go live your dream and everything will work out okay. And there are stories of people who move to LA and sell everything and live in their car and then get discovered. One in a million,
Yeah,
maybe.
I think I know Hilary Swank did that, and that's it. I
I
mean,
think who was the Australian actor who was in Avatar? Sam
Sam Worthington.
Worthington.
Sam
Yes.
Worthington.
From what I remember, he was a car dweller when he first
Wow.
moved to LA. I might be misremembering that,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
so it's fun and it's romantic and it's the dream, but it's also quite misleading
yeah, yeah,
because for the one or two people that happen to, there are 100,000 homeless people in LA
yeah,
who
yeah,
moved there and it didn't happen.
yeah, yeah.
And I don't think there's any need to do that. I'm managing a full time marketing position right now
Hmm.
and making time to screenwrite. Now, granted, I don't have a family, so anybody with a partner and kids is screaming at me right now, you don't know what it's like.
Yeah,
And that's true. I don't. But if you can find half an hour per day
yeah,
to do your thing that lights you up,
yeah.
and the rest of your time, you're living a happy life.
Hmm.
I would rather do that and maybe get there one day rather than forget all that life stuff,
Yeah,
focus on this one goal. And
yeah,
look, there's people that would disagree and say, no, 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 you have to be ruthless, you have to be obsessed. Fine, go try it that way. I did that for years and years, and it practically killed me, and I'm not
yeah,
even exaggerating.
yeah, yeah.
Before we deviate too much, there's a few things you've said here that I've made notes on. When
Hmm.
you talk about, getting to that place, that vision, that goal that we've had since we were kids, and obviously it's shifted over time. What does that look like for you now? Is there a moment where you can say, did it, did the thing, tick the box? Not that I'm going to stop here, but that's kind of, that was the
Yeah.
thing that I wanted to do.
Well, I think what we haven't mentioned is that initially, when we were young, it was all about acting.
Right.
Like I
Yes.
was obsessed with being an actor. I did,
Oh,
I
man.
watched the
Yeah.
film and I wanted to do what they were doing.
You did
And it's only
impressions.
and then as time went on, and my continued failure in being able to secure proper acting roles, I thought, my interest in making films grew. And so then I
Mm,
decided to try producing things.
right.
That in of itself is now a 15-year journey.
Oof.
The goal for me now is is to be an enabled producer or filmmaker.
Okay,
And
define the terms. Enabled
yeah,
producer. What does that
so
mean to you?
so I'm about to direct my own film, and I can't wait. and I'm going to be so excited to be on the set there doing what I've dreamt of doing, of what how I've pictured myself. I
Hmm.
can't wait. But there's still like one final step is for that film to be released and for it to be seen by obviously audiences, but to be seen by the industry and to then just be, I guess it's just to be perceived as a legitimate filmmaker. And so when I'm talked about, or when the film is talked about, it's the context is that of me as a director producer,
Hmm.
and so the enabled part comes from people see my work and hopefully it's half decent, and they're like, okay, here's some money or a little bit more money to go ahead and make the next one, and just for my here's the thing, and just for my everyday life to now be that of a filmmaker um as opposed to just being part of the, a cog in a bigger machine, which I'm very grateful for, like I said. But
Yeah,
my
yeah, but
for
you
my
can still
ev
want more.
yeah, for my everyday life to be that of a filmmaker,
Hmm.
that's when I feel like, and I've got to go to do some ADR, or I've got a screening to go to, or I've got a little podcast to do, or I've got a, just little, the life of a director producer, basically.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's what I love about that is there's sort of metrics involved, not exactly hard metrics like revenue, but
Mm,
metrics as in it's not wishy-washy. That's quite a specific vision that you will know when you're there. I think
mm,
a lot of people struggle with this in this industry because your goal can be a bit wishy-washy. And for you to say, I want to be a writer, well, what does that even mean? What do you,
mm.
is that you've sold one script? Is that you're in a writer's room on a TV show? What do you mean by that? And I hear that a lot from people. It's why I asked you. I just want to check in with you, if you like, and see,
Mhm.
do you have that specificity? And it does sound like you do. I mean, the life of a director producer, do you see that as you no longer need your supplemental income, your day job? Are you phasing that out in some way, and then eventually it's you're just directing, producing?
Yeah, I think definitely
Yeah.
that's the goal. The goal is for eventually for that to be my full-time job, 100% making
So
film.
something that I'm really interested in from you is you've had a script such as Great Scott and probably others, but let's focus on Great Scott because it's the one that I know the most about.
Mm, mm,
You've had a script like that on the, I would say, on the cusp for so long now. It's attracted interest, it's had endorsements, it's done well, and it hasn't quite gotten over the threshold. How do you deal with that? What are the mind games that you've had to play to not just rip that thing up and walk away from it? Because I'm fascinated by this because
well,
you've just stayed in there.
yeah, I mean, I just believe in the concept of the idea. I just have a surety um, within myself that it will play. Um, I've wanted to pull my hair out at how long it's taken.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I mean, I did the stupidest thing when I first came up with the idea, because it uses IP, and anyone who knows Great Scott, that phrase, will draw the link. But it uses very, very well known IP, and when I came up with the idea, I was like, surely this is a no-brainer.
Can we just for anybody who's been living under a rock for the
Yeah,
last 40 years, Great
yeah.
Scott is a reference to.
Back to the Future. It's a love letter to Back to the Future.
There you go. Okay,
Um,
continue.
Yeah. Um, and I just thought it's a no-brainer. It's perennial insofar as it's voted the most favorite movie of the 80s, and this is a decade that had E.T., Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Gremlins, Goonies. I mean, it's ridiculous,
So no competition then, really.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But it's still always voted number one, incredibly.
Yeah.
And I
That is
just
actually
thought
amazing when you think about that. That's incredible.
it's insane. And so I just thought people are just going to jump on this. And I've had
Womp
the op
womp.
yeah, I've had the opposite experience. It's been a hard graft. It's
Hmm.
been it's been like pulling blood from a stone. Um, uh, but my, your to go back to your question, it's just because I just believe in it, and despite the difficulties, I've had enough people say, I have had people say, I cannot believe this hasn't been made yet. Um, and so you do cling on to that. And yeah, I guess it's just belief in the project, and
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
now have it with someone who believes in it as much as we do. Back to the Future was the first film he ever went to see at the cinema, so he has a real
Oh, that helps.
yeah, he has a real
Yeah.
affinity and affection.
Yeah, that's a special moment for him, and
Yeah.
he can bring that to the
Yeah.
project. Yeah.
So we're working on the script, and he wants it to be his next film. I mean, whether that plays out that way or not, because they have films have a life of themselves, but
Yeah.
at least he has that focus, that goal. So I'm hoping it's sooner rather than later. I'm hoping we're at the tail end of this long development period for Great
Yeah.
Scott, and but much the same as my overall goal, I'm compelled to just keep going. It's
Well, what's the
um
alternative?
well, exactly what
Right.
I don't have an alternative.
What does life look like if you stopped doing this?
I mean, yeah, exactly. I don't know.
There isn't one.
Yeah, there
That
isn't one. I don't I don't have a backup other than
yeah.
just being the buyer coordinator that I am for a very,
Yeah.
very long time.
I
Um,
heard
that's it.
a stand-up comedian, it may have been Jimmy Carr, but don't quote me on that. But he said his advice to young comics right now would be don't get into comedy unless you literally can't not do comedy.
Yeah,
And I think the same about being a filmmaker, being a
100%.
scriptwriter, being a
Yeah,
director. Probably don't get into it unless you literally can't
unless
not
you
do
can't.
it.
And
Yeah.
that's actually good because it brings, when I was trying to be an actor and then latterly a producer, I was like, especially when I was an actor, I was like, what is the secret sauce that makes people like what's the difference between people who make it and people who don't? I wanted to know.
Hmm.
I'm sure many people do. And I came to realize it's not some magic. It is the people who don't make it are the people who stopped.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
It's a game of attrition. It's
yeah, yeah,
most people quit.
and it's just the people who carry on are the people who couldn't stop,
Yeah.
who had
Yeah.
to.
And I would add to that the people that continuously develop their skill set, they apply themselves. They're not just hanging in there and doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah,
staying in the game long enough and also benefiting from compounding training, compounding skill development.
yeah,
So you pick up one little thing here or there, doesn't feel like much, but if you keep doing that over the years, you get to a level of competency which is not mastery by any means, but you're already ahead of 90% of people who either quit or just they're still doing what they were doing 10 years
yeah,
ago.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I think you're absolutely right. You stay in it because A, you know it's going to take a long time, and B,
yeah,
there's no alternative to
yeah,
this. This is just
yeah,
who we are.
yeah. And I've heard it said, some people are like, if you're grafting at it and you're unhappy, if you can find something else that can make you happy, do that,
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
think people realize that their mental health, their physical health, their family life actually are more important. And so
and they are because
and they are
this,
and I have to live with and all of us who have had a family and have continued to pursue this line of work. And you at some point you have to address the fact that your family probably have suffered for in pursuit of your dream. Um,
and
and
that's one of the reasons I
it's not
asked
a
you about
small thing.
this.
It's not a
I
small
asked you
thing.
about this because you've done a great job with that. You
Oh, I haven't
are
done a great job. I
well.
haven't.
Pause. You're still married, correct?
Yeah,
Your kids love you just about.
there or thereabouts. One of them's 16, so we're in the iffy stage.
Oh, well, no 16-year-old loves their parents.
Actually, he's very good. I do him a disservice. He's amazing.
So I would argue that you have done. I'm not saying you've been perfect. I'm not saying
Good.
there hasn't been challenges,
Yeah.
but you have persisted. You are still a married man with children that are doing well, and you're still when you're about to direct your first movie. This is all great stuff, and
Yeah.
this comes from a man who I've known since he was 13, maybe, talking about doing all of this.
Well,
So you've it's been a long. Isn't it wild that we talked about it back then and then went on completely opposite? You could not imagine two more opposite
I know.
journeys,
I know
me
we've gone
compared
about
to
it
you,
completely differently. Completely differently.
and yet here we are.
I know. I know. Yeah.
I think about everything that has happened to me since Coppleston High School or sixth form, moving to Cambridge, moving to London, working on cruise ships, acting and modeling, moving to Phoenix, working in marketing, being a life coach, all of that to land me in LA, which is the place I always dreamed of living. And I'm here doing a podcast talking to you
I
about
know.
you, and you're about to direct your first movie.
I
This is
know.
just
Yeah, you circle back
oh,
eventually.
it's beautiful. It really
Yeah.
is. It really
Yeah.
is. And we said we would always end up working together on something.
Hmm.
So I mean, probably not just this podcast. Hopefully. Yeah, that was it, guys.
We did it.
You finally worked on something together. It was a Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll take it. I'll take it. Have you just, we're going to wrap here in a minute, but um, as you've been on that journey, something that I've experienced as I've been on the journey has been almost this feeling that I had something to prove because people thought I couldn't do it, or I haven't actually, I'll be honest, I haven't had many people outwardly say to me, "You're being dumb, go do something better with your life."
Yeah.
But there has been a feeling, and I don't know where that feeling comes from, but that feeling of people are going to judge me if I don't pull this off.
Hmm.
Because there's a lot of other careers I could have gone into, could have gone to university. Like you were saying, you didn't do that. I didn't do that. Has that ever kind of eaten at you a little
Oh,
bit?
oh,
Have you?
definitely. I mean, I have as fragile of an ego as the next guy.
Well, the
And
next guy's me, so that's not true. But
um, and yeah, I mean, I still think of I mean, I wish I could be a fly on the wall when some of the people who dismissed me as a kid in high school, when they see that a certain film has been directed by me, probably it won't even register with them. It won't be like, oh man, I wish I wasn't horrible to him. It'll
yeah,
just be like, oh,
yeah.
and that'll
It
be
it will literally be that, huh?
it'll be a moment in
And
their
then
very
just
full
back to
day
their
with their
day.
own families and their own jobs and their own lives. So,
Yeah.
um, um, a little bit, but again, I didn't have anyone say, I doubt that's going to happen, mate. Good luck. But I wasn't in the popular gang. I was annoying. I was too loud. And so
Hey,
I was.
we were the popular gang
No, we
in
weren't
in amongst our own friendship group of
in your
three
living room.
in Blockbuster Video Store.
Yeah.
We,
Um. So
by the way, I worked.
I've
I just need to clarify that I worked at the Blockbuster Video Store. That's where we hung out
and
all
what a summer
summer.
it was.
Could
Um.
make a movie about that. Anyway,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, so I've got a little, but I've got a little chip on my shoulder so far as that's concerned, but it hasn't been my primary motivation, and it's more of it's more of a subplot in my head. But
Yeah,
um
it will be a nice moment when it happens. There'll be a moment of like, huh, but then it will be back to
yeah,
I'm doing
and I
this
won't
because I
be there
love doing it.
exactly, and I won't be there to witness these people see
I don't
me
know. We could maybe arrange that. We could
a premiere for all Coppleston Secondary
organize
School
some kind of
attendees.
Coppleston school reunion and turn it into
Yeah,
screening.
and screen one of my films, and then I walk up and go, okay.
Told you so.
Yeah,
Just you just pull a rope and a banner comes in. Told you.
yeah, and then a helicopter lands outside, and you and I walk onto it and fly off.
With James Cameron.
Yeah, and they're like, "Who's James Cameron?"
Yeah, they wouldn't even know who he is. Who was the old guy with the beard? Do you know
James
what?
Cameron. He
I
directed Aliens.
I
What?
knew that extra 100 grand wasn't worth it for Jim
Yeah,
Cameron to show up.
yeah, exactly.
um, this is great. I'm going to wrap it up soon. I do want to just, because I like to steer these conversations towards kind of practical takeaways for the listeners, and you've already dropped some knowledge bombs, but I want to make sure we kind of wrap it up with one. So, if there's somebody listening who is maybe towards the beginning of their journey, there's a lot of screenwriters out there who are early in their career and especially now experiencing troublesome times like the writers' strikes. What would be the advice you would give to them if you could put it into a single? And I know you're not so much a writer these days, you're more of the director producer, but just in general, what would be your overall message to carry with them as they go about this journey? Because I want them to go on the journey. I think it's an enthralling and exciting journey, but it is challenging. So if you could wrap it up in a nutshell, what would it be?
Well, I mean, besides what we said about finding something to make you happy on the side, in terms of like specific to screenwriting, it just practice and hone it. And the only way to hone it is to write as much as you can and have people read it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need
Yep.
loads.
Spot on.
You don't need loads. You probably need a maximum of three people. Probably four is almost too much already. Um, have three trusted people who you trust their opinion, and who have a bit about them, um, and just start learning from their notes, and also read screenplays.
Yes. Yes.
Read.
As many as you can.
Yeah, if you watch a film and you're like, "Oh my word, I love that film," try and find the script. Not all of them are out there, but there's a ton that are.
Mm-hmm.
And so read that screenplay. So
Yeah.
just write, fit it in. If you do 3 pages a day in a month, you've written a screenplay. And don't worry about the quality of it. Don't try and be perfect. Just
Mm-hmm.
get a first draft done,
Yep.
and then send it off and read.
Yeah.
And that's it. And just be relentless. That's it. Just be
Yeah.
relentless.
It aligns so closely with any advice that I would give because I try and keep it down to what are the essentials.
Mm,
And really, it is be consistent. So do the work every day and be prepared to stay at it for a long, long, long time.
long time.
And it's the least sexy advice I could give anybody because
Yeah.
what they want is what are the 6 steps to becoming a screenwriter? Or how can I be a screenwriter in the next year? The reality to being successful in anything is do it every day for a really long time.
Yeah,
And
because yeah, that's it.
that destroys the entire personal development industry because everybody has their own take on what you can do and the 6 habits of success. And
Yeah.
look, there are people who are successful that are in the 5 a.m. club and they have a morning routine and they do
Mhm.
cold plunge and they eat vegan. And there are people who are successful that drink 6 pints of lager every day and wake up at noon. So there's very little that everybody that's successful has in common other than they do the work consistently and they've
Yeah,
been doing it a long time.
100%. I couldn't agree with that more. Yeah.
It's crazy because it's so boring to give that advice, but it's
Yeah.
the most honest advice I can
But
give.
it is, and it's the one that works.
Yeah,
Mm.
what is the expression? The slow way is the fast way because the slow way is the only way.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, right. Wow. I've actually not heard that. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I love that. I love it and it pisses me off because it's so true and I don't
Yeah,
want
yeah,
it to be true. I
yeah,
want
yeah,
there to be a fast way. But
yeah.
before we go, tell people where they can go to, well, tell us a bit about Firmament, the film you have coming up, and then tell us where we can go to support that or to support you or to connect with you online. Give us the
Well,
lowdown.
yeah, so Firmament is just, all I've been developing scripts with my writer for a while and they're all above 2 or 3 million. So that's why we're still working on getting them going. And I finally had an idea that could be done cheaply. And this far down the road, and at my age, I was like, actually, I think I can direct this as well. So I managed, and I thought this idea can be done for about 100 grand. It was literally just like I pulled a figure out, and I thought, I think I know enough people who I can raise that amount. So I emailed about 250 people, and I got 6 people who have managed to raise the 100k that I need.
Wow, between
And
6 people, that's really good. That's
yeah,
quite a
well,
big investment per person.
I knew the ratio was really small of who would say yes. So I knew I'd have to
Mm,
email a lot of people, and I knew I would only get 1 or 2 right people who would respond. It turns out it was about 6. Yeah, and a couple of people are putting in decent amounts for it to be that many people. Um, and yeah, I didn't have a script yet because I needed to pay my writer to do it. So I was, some of these people who said yes put in the money already, and so I was able to then pay my writer, and we're into the second draft now. And I wanted to shoot this autumn, but we'll see. Script is king, so we'll just wait until we're both completely happy with the script, and then I'll go out to a US producer because I want to make it in America,
hmm.
typically. And it's very much turned out to be a love letter to America, which happened, which wasn't the original idea, but it's just happened as it's hung around in my head. And if you know me, which you do, that's it's not a shock that it's turned into this. And yeah, and hopefully the latest I'll be shooting it in spring, earliest maybe autumn, winter, but we'll see. Where people can find me, I don't have a lot. I have a personal Facebook page which no one can access because it's personal, but I have I have I have a Twitter.
Great shout out, man. Well done.
Yeah, thanks. I have a Twitter, so it's just Hiram Bleetman. I think it's just,
Do you mean an X?
yeah, on X. Yeah, yeah.
I will always call it Twitter.
I
Sorry,
know, right?
Elon.
I mean, what do
Sorry.
you call it? It's like when you put out a post. It used to be I tweeted something. Now it's
You're
like
Xing, I guess.
I X'd it. No, anyway.
Sounds like you
Um,
got rid of it if you X'd.
yeah, exactly, exactly. There's yeah. So I have X.
Do you
That's
need
about it.
do you need any more support for Firmament? Any more donations? Any GoFundMe's or Kickstarters that we can send people to? Anything, or are you all set there?
I don't have a GoFundMe. I don't have a Kickstarter because I did it all through personal contacts.
Right.
I am
Okay.
definitely still, I have enough to be, quote, greenlit. I'm greenlighting myself, so I don't know if that means I'm greenlit.
Yeah, we'll
Um,
count that. We'll count that.
um, but definitely, I mean, if I had a public goal of 100k, but I have a sort of private one of like 150. Like if I could raise 150, or by some miracle even 200, that would be,
Mm,
I'd feel a little bit more comfortable with that.
when you're flying
Um,
first class over
yeah,
to
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
just a bit
yeah.
more comfortable.
Please, guys. So yeah, so if people want to see the pitch deck and see what it's all about, you can reach me. You can DM me on X, or I'm sure people can get in touch with you, and then you can filter them through me or whatever. If you want to
Yeah,
find us.
absolutely. I'll put the information in the description for the
Okay.
episode, and I will make sure they can hit you up on X, or like you said, they can reach out to me, and I will forward them to you. And when you get to the stage of looking for a US producer, definitely let me know because I
Okay.
will send you some interesting people to look at. I've met a bunch of producers in LA, and I'm sure they'd be interested in looking at it.
I have one in mind, but if he can't or doesn't want to do it, then my net goes wider. Yeah.
Fine, screw you then. Uh,
Thanks,
just
man.
just put the offer out there and just shun me entirely. I just after all these years, man. All right, let's wrap this one up. This has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for doing this. It's still surreal having you as a guest on this, but I loved it, and I want to know more about what happens with Firmament. So maybe there can be a sequel to this episode coming up after you've done the shoot. We can look back on it and break it
Yeah,
down
that
for
would be
people.
crazy. Yeah, yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
All
no,
right,
it's
man.
yeah, thanks for having me. This is my first ever podcast. It's been a pleasure as well.
All right. I love you, and I will talk to you soon.
Back at you, buddy. Cheers, dude.